Salute Nick Streets. Let's talk about this game as the New York Knicks drop the opportunity to close the Pistons out for the first time since 1999. They had an opportunity to close a series out on their home floor and failed to do so. And we're headed back to Detroit for a game six. Man, sickening, bad loss, tough loss. A lot of things to unpack, which we will. I predicted this series would end in six, and this is the reason why. Long story short, I feel like the Knicks have just been too inconsistent all season to win 4 out of 5 games. But they had an opportunity. They were in great position. There was a lot of factors in this one. Uh, Early foul trouble, I think, bedeviled the Knicks. The game was officiated a lot tighter in the first half, and the Knicks just didn't adjust. Sloppy, silly turnovers, throwing the ball away so many times. Missed free throws in this one. But of course, if we want to get down to the nuts and bolts, late down the stretch, Tibbs only had one timeout left, and freakishly, Brunson and Hart had to leave the game, due to a being, knocked around, taking a shot. Brunson hurt his ankle. Hart took a shot on a drive from a Piston, and they were out of the game. And the Knicks only had one timeout to get them back in. They were down 6, though. Campaign, Deuce McBride had to come in and try to get some offense going, and the Knicks didn't want to call a timeout. Obviously, most people disagree with Tibbs to not, eat that final timeout and get Brunson and Hart back in the game. But fortuitously, the Knicks got the lead back down. The Pistons turned it over a little bit. The Knicks hit 2 heroic threes, right, to give themselves a chance. Almost came up with that steal. The Pistons got a loose ball back, and the Knicks had to commit a final foul to send the Pistons to the line, down 1. They made both free throws, 3-point game. Deuce McBride bringing the ball up, got fouled. 2 free throws, missed the first one, had to miss the second one. And the Knicks weren't able to come up with the rebound, but it would have been a crazy way, undeservedly way, I think, to win this game. But we're headed back to Detroit. I really feel like the Knicks have looked more comfortable on the road. And that's a story in itself. We could do another whole podcast about that as to why the Knicks just can't play their best at Madison Square Garden. But Brunson's talked about it for a couple of years now. He has that mindset to win big games on the road. The Knicks have done that twice. But will the Pistons be even more hungry now to finally win a game at Little Caesars? Will they get the bounce of the ball? Would they get the rub of the green in game 6? The Knicks are playing with fire. The Knicks are playing with danger right now. And who knows what the hell is going to happen in game 6. Buckle up. Strap yourselves in. Anything could happen. The Knicks could just come out and bludgeon them and be angry and blow them away. Or like I said, maybe the Pistons get hot. Maybe all their players get hot in one game, and we have to bring this thing back to Madison Square Garden on a game 7. Whichever way you slice it and dice it, the Knicks lost an opportunity, I think, to go on a deep playoff run with losing this game. Right, you got Brunson banged up, Hart's banged up, OG's been guarding Cade like a pit bull all series. He deserves a ton of credit. But look at the Knicks starters, man. Karl Anthony Towns, -12. Mikal Bridges, -14. OG, -7. I think Tibbs didn't coach a good game in this one, right? We gave him his flowers in game 3 and game 4. Tibbs coached a really, really poor game tonight. The Knicks weren't fluid early. They weren't playing with a fast pace. Again, they fell back into their bad habits. They were tentative, let the Pistons hang around, and found themselves in another early hole, which is absolutely inexcusable, right? This graphic, the wire to wire, will tell the story. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Buzzer Beater, Chris Gotti, Johnny, and Lily Phillips. Salute Daniel Berry, Ernest, Knicks family. Hope everyone's doing well, man. Trying to keep my cool because I'm heated, but again, I predicted Knicks in 6. I'm just frustrated, Every time I say this, I mean it. Every time we're about to prosper, this team falls back into adversity. And you could talk about personnel. Is it depth? Is it a lack of killer mentality, killer mindset? You should have killed this Pistons team off long ago. Right. As we look at this wire to wire, look, the Knicks barely led on a closeout game at Madison Square Garden. Look, they barely had the lead in the whole 48 minutes. You can't say that the Knicks deserve to win this game because look at the wire to wire, man. We came out poor in the first quarter. We got back into the game. Halftime came again. We came out at the start of the third like we were fast asleep once again. And that's a big knock on Tom Thibodeau because it's been the same all season. It's been the same all 5 years since he's been here. Whatever they do at halftime is not working because they come out to end the half, start of the third, and look at the Pistons. They went on a hella run once again, getting up by 10 in the third, like clockwork, man. Death, taxes, and the Knicks falling behind in the third quarter, and it's embarrassing. You know, you got the crowd, you got legends there. Haven't closed out a series at MSG since 1999, and you have another opportunity. And for the second year in a row, Philadelphia last year, and for the second year in a row, this team lays an egg on their home floor. Man, they deserve this thing to go to 7. Right, whatever happens in 6 will happen. But quite frankly, they deserve for this thing to go to 7. And yeah, we're going to talk about the officials, right? They did mess up a lot of calls. The Bridges goaltend would have given the Knicks a chance to win this one. The ticky-tack foul calls, the foul trouble that hurt both teams, etc., etc. But the Knicks just weren't good enough at the end of the day. They missed 10 free throws. They're playing a team that is a borderline play-in team. With respect to Detroit, they're definitely a gritty team, but really, Cade was just doing whatever he wanted, and we shouldn't be having to work this hard to beat a team where one guy is the only guy that can beat you. Double him. Double him. We're literally getting beaten by one guy with Cade Cunningham. And Schroeder, Hardaway, Tobias Harris, right? Or Sar Thompson doesn't do nothing. I think Duran had a better game tonight, but Ron Holland doesn't give them anything. They don't have Isaiah Stewart. They don't have Jaden Ivey. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and a really, really poor coach game from this one. That's the crux of it, ladies and gentlemen. Heroic Mitchell Robinson game. But the Detroit Pistons got 9 steals, and we were just careless with the basketball. I knew those turnovers would bedevil us. This read and react offense where Tibbs just lets them, go off on a tangent and freestyle. You got Mikal Bridges trying to throw a full court touchdown pass to Mitchell Robinson with Butterfingers, and then you had Brunson, the point guard, and Hart throw the ball away like it was a hot potato. Every time we're trying to make a run, they set us back. We fall back into quicksand right now. And so, we have a closer. We know we can, we win the fourth quarter again. But what are we doing for the first 3 quarters? Lackadaisical play. And it's just, it's frustrating, fam. This is the craziest 3rd seed I've seen, man. We really should be a 5 seed with the way we're acting up with this one. Let's get to your comments. Lily Phillips says, shake my head. Buzzer Beater says, can we create a fundraiser to maybe pay the refs not to screw us? I think we've gone way beyond that, man. I feel you. I feel the frustration regarding the officials, but at the end of the day, this series has just been so ugly that it's a battle of, as we see Cade, he's been doing this all series, man. He's stiff-armed Hart on that one, and Hart went down. But Hart was moving, in motion. He was moving to contest. The Knicks just weren't smart, man. We have talent, we have guts, we have determination, we have grit. The biggest thing, if you want my honest evaluation on this season, we've been missing IQ. We've been missing the IQ. And I'm not talking about quickly. I'm talking about this IQ. From the coach to the players, onwards. We find ourselves in situations where we just make it hard for ourselves. You know, in the playoffs, you could have talent, you could have grit, you could have determination, you could be fighting harder than the other team. But if you don't have good IQ, look at the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, man. For those that don't know, the Milwaukee Bucks lost a game that was the biggest playoff collapse I've ever seen in my lifetime of, 35 years watching playoff ball, the biggest collapse in a game. And it was crazy. They were up 6 or 7 with under 30 seconds to play and somehow lost the game. So spare a moment for Bucks fans out there, but the Knicks aren't much better, you know. The Knicks aren't much better closing games out, man. Um, and look, a lot of people are going to point to the coach, you know, and that's why we say, this team has a ceiling, ladies and gentlemen. I think even a lot of Tibbs supporters are starting to come around where there's good things, but there's a lot of bad, and if you want to get better, you got to be better. You got to do better. Um, talent's one thing. You can only sign so many players, trade for so many players. You need elite coaching to win an NBA championship. Look no further than most of the champion teams. They all have elite head coaches. Ain't no stiff head coach is going to lead a team, 4 rounds to an NBA chip. There's a lot of stop-start, play calls, execution, and adjustments and things like that. Jimmy UCLA says we're 0-11 against good teams for a reason. Yeah, and I'm not going to tonight sink the boot into the talent or the roster. It's more than that. We have talent. We can beat anybody. We know that. We got guys that hit threes. They gave us heroic effort tonight. Defense. Just when I thought the game was over, they pull you back in, man, like a fishing line. They pull you back in thinking the game's done, and then they'll make some heroic play that just cancels out by some boneheaded play. you know. Um, Cardiac says if Leon would have stayed patient and not given the farm up for Bridges, the Knicks would have had a legit candidate to get Giannis. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that, but appreciate your thoughts. I think, it's going to be a crazy off season. I think the Knicks, we have a long ways to go, and we can really strengthen the roster. So I never thought we were going to win the chip this year, but you got to make steps. You got to grow. And right now, have we shown more growth than last year's series against Philly? I mean, look, they've got to come out, and they've got to come out in Detroit and end the series. Don't come out, use tonight as frustration once again. I mean, something just popped up in my mind as well. You guys remember early in the season, this team lost on Legends Night at MSG. But who did they lose to on that night? You guys tell me. They lost to the Detroit Pistons. It was a celebration of Legends Night during this regular season, and we lost it to a depleted Pistons team. And tonight, the crowd was fired up. We're ready to close this thing up, and we lose to the Pistons again. We lose to the Pistons again, man. We just haven't been consistent. We haven't been consistent this season, man. Silly foul calls, silly ticky-tack stuff. But I feel like just throwing the ball away, slow it down, execute. There were so many times when the lid on the building was about to explode, and the players didn't act cool. The players didn't keep their cool. Hart wanted to, sort of run a fast break and then not run a fast break and then just threw the ball away. Cade was obviously getting away with the carries and the plays that he should have, been given a turnover for. Brunson was called for that technical. That came back to hurt us as well. If Brunson doesn't get that technical. And that's one of those things where you can't tell me that the NBA is different with each game. I mean, you got Draymond Green who's clapping in the referee's face. You got Chris Paul that basically like threatens the referee with body language, and they don't get nothing. And a guy like Jalen Brunson, who doesn't complain about officials, just jumps up and down and pleads for the carry call on Cade, and he gets teed up like immediately. So it's kind of crazy. and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it could have been Clyde's final playoff game. Um, Obviously, game 6 and 7, we'll see what plays out, fam. But specifically, it's more to do with MSG networks, nothing to do with Clyde specifically. But yeah, next season, the local broadcasts can't, broadcast any playoff games, even in round 1. And round 2 this season, the national networks get all the games. So tonight, I don't know what the schedule is going to be like for games 6 and 7. Yeah, we might not be getting Clyde on the call again. But yeah, the Knicks failed a golden opportunity, man. I'm sick to my stomach right now with this game. Another opportunity to close this team out now, and both teams just regressing to adversity. If you look at it, it's embarrassing on both sides. You got the Pistons that lost both games at Little Caesars, and you got the New York Knicks that have lost both games at 2 games at MSG. Right, game 1 with the Knicks scraped out with a win, basically off a 21-0 run with the help of campaign. Without that's their lone win at MSG against this team. Now, if we're road warriors and we want to go out and close it out in Detroit, I get it. But something's seriously up for the long term if you can't win a playoff game at home. Look who we're up against, man. We ain't up against Boston. We ain't even up against Indiana Pacers. They would have beat us tonight. Milwaukee Bucks could have beaten us tonight, man. Now, if you want to put it down to maybe we find out Brunson was really hurting with the ankle, I get it. That's a storyline from the whole season. We wore him down. When you put so much strain on one guy to carry you on his back, he's eventually going to wear down, man. Leon Rose needs to get more shot creation, more help, on this ball club. Great shots made from Cat. That 3-pointer from the car park, man, that was crazy. Right. That was the loudest I screamed all game, and that was insane, man. I thought we were going to win after that, but yeah, you guys let us know. AP says McBride hurt, could be out this summer. Yeah, a lot of guys are really didn't step up. I put McCall on the thumbnail early in this one. I thought, yeah, we're going to get a McCall game. We're going to close them out, but he hit a few shots late, but really nothing that warrants a guy that deserves 30 million or 25 million, and certainly not a player you trade 5 picks for. As Bridges went 7 of 16, minus 14 in the box score, 17 points, 6 rebounds. I thought the play where he got blocked, that was a goaltend, kind of embodied Mikal Bridges this season. Worried whenever he gets to the rack. I saw a player that was a bit tentative, trying to avoid the contact. If you go straight to the rack and finish it strong, you either get fouled or you'll get that goaltend. But yeah, he just hasn't played with a force when going to the rack this season. Hart was heroic, 15 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, 7 of 13 was efficient, hit a 3. I thought, but Brunson and Cat just started too slow in this one, guys. I knew this was going to be a grinded out game after the first half. I kind of felt like the Knicks would come out of the gate fast and put the Pistons away, or it would be one of those games where we let the Pistons hang around. And look, credit to them, credit to the Pistons. Their season could have ended today, but they came out, and this probably wasn't even their best game, and they come out with a win, which is all the more frustrating for New York. Cade obviously had a great second half, but the Knicks didn't adjust. Didn't get the ball out of his hands. They messed up on a lot of the switches. And, the rest is history, guys. Jimmy says, I wouldn't be surprised if we lose the series. Yeah, nothing would surprise me right now, I mean, it could be worse. Like, I still want Tibbs gone, but, we don't have Doc Rivers, basically. What's up with Doc Rivers, man? I I'm still speechless over because I had the dual screen going. I was watching the Milwaukee Indiana game because I was really hoping, Milwaukee could force a game 6. But I mean, you can't lose that game if you're Milwaukee, man. The way they just threw that away. Um, but our coach ain't much better right now, man. Really could have used a few timeouts, settle them down, execute, run a few plays, a few decoy plays, get Cat a few open threes when we need it. It just, the flow of the game is just all messed up. When the Knicks make that run in the third and try to get the lead, they just can't. They just can't get over the hump. They can't get over the hump, man. And it is an indictment on the point guards as well. Brunson's got to be better. The read and reacting has to be better. But throwing the ball away was inexcusable, man. I nearly lost it when Bridges threw that full court pass to Mitch, because that was basically about the third possession in a row where the Knicks just tossed it away. And it's like, are we going to run something? Or are we just going to try to, throw the ball away at that point? Jazzman says terrible. Everyone's standing around. GK says Pistons will take the series. I'm not that way yet, man. I really feel like the Knicks still have the talent and will win this series. It's just we just try to make it difficult, man, for ourselves, man. The way the series is gone, the Pistons will have to win 3 in a row to win this series. It's not happening. They won tonight. The Knicks will lament what happened. They'll be sick to their stomach, and they'll come out focused. They'll come out focused in Detroit, just like they did against Philly. I know a lot of the doomsayers are going to say the Knicks will lose the series, but I still don't see it. But what's it going to take? What casualties are going to be there if we get past this team in 7 or 6, and then we have to face Boston? We gave up our opportunity to get a rest, right? And I would have been sick even if we won the game late, because look at this. Like, it's just, this frustrates me the most, right? This is your third game at MSG, and you trail for most of the game, right? Come from behind. Something's telling me that we should be the underdog in this team. The Pistons should have come in favorite, because that's how we're playing right now. You shouldn't be down double digits against the Pistons again. It's ridiculous. And look, man, the sooner the season's done and the coach is out of here, the better, as far as I'm concerned, man. There's no more apologies. Tom Thibodeau's doing the bare minimum right now. He's doing the bare minimum, Can anyone say with confidence that we're head and shoulders the better team and that we should be, pushing this team aside? No. Game 1 was, we took our chances. We made the run. Game 2, it is what it is. We lost that game. Game 3, we thoroughly deserved. We made great adjustments. Cat came to play. Game 4, we did get a little bit of a favourable whistle late, but, we still were the slightly better team. But really, it's by fine margins, man. Even Alan Hahn said it on the call. Everyone's been saying it's been an 8-point series heading into tonight. The Knicks lead 3-1, but by a margin of 8 points over the 3 games. That tells the story right now. Why can't we close a team out at MSG? Like, I'm not in the building. You guys let me know. Like, the crowd was okay, but I thought it could have been better. I thought, what is there? A lot of tourists in the building. Like, why aren't we getting a hostile? Why isn't it that hostile where a road team like Detroit can feel okay at MSG, can start the third quarter with more hunger than us? Why is it that they can start the game looking, more switched on, more focused than us? Do we just think that the home crowd is going to carry us, to the victory? Is it complacency? Like, what is it right now, man? Cade Cunningham couldn't miss at the free throw line either. That was crazy. Hidalgo says Knicks play better away. Yeah, I agree. It's pretty obvious now. I think Brunson said it on the podcast, I think last season. He likes playing on the road. He likes the crowd getting into him. But I respect that, but I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we're favoring a road game over a home game. Something just not right, in my opinion, with that mentality, you know? That speaks to me that Brunson wants to keep playing the underdog role. He wants to be the underdog in the story in this movie. If the Knicks want to win an NBA championship, they have to live with being the favorite, with being the alpha. You know, we've tried to play the underdog story all season, but we're trying to win a championship. We're the third seed going up against the sixth seed. I've said it all season. We lack that killer mindset. No killer mentality with this team. So many teams we had our foot on their throat and we took it off and we helped them back up. There's something wrong with that, in my opinion. I don't know. Is it a soft mindset? I know the players, physically they ain't soft, but do they have a soft underbelly? Do they have a soft mindset right now? I think they get a little bit ahead of themselves. I think at times in the season, the slow starts, losing to Utah, losing to to Detroit 3 times in the season. Some of those bad losses to Chicago. We're not at that point where we're focused enough, playing as the third seed. It's crazy. Rover says, and Detroit's going to be hostile next game. Yeah, you better believe it. And these guys are going to have to back up their talk, Beasley's going to start to do his shimmy and whatnot. And look, who knows if injuries catch up to us, I still believe we can win Game 6 in Detroit. But what I can't predict for y'all is, I can't predict the unforeseen. Maybe Beasley gets hot. Maybe Hardaway gets hot again, and we're in another dogfight. Maybe one of our guys is hobbled again. That's why you have to end this series today. And once again, like, we're missing some key talent to get to that next step. Right. Obviously, there's Cleveland and Boston, right? And I know we finished third, and I was trying to say that we are like in a tier of our own, like ahead of Detroit, Orlando, Milwaukee, Indiana. And I know a lot of Knicks Nation been making that case. Like, are we a tier above those teams, but a tier below Oklahoma, Cleveland, and Boston? Right now, we ain't no better than Milwaukee's and Indiana's, right? I don't think we can put ourselves ahead of them. We're right there with them, to make that case. As the third seed, it's just been embarrassing the amount of times we're played down to the opponents, and at the end of the day, they'll show you who they are, and here we are, fam. Lily Phillips says, watching several teams close out with no problem. Yep. Cardiac. Jimmy says Stephen A. Smith should be banned. Yeah, man, you made me remember that. He was in the building tonight, man. Even Michael Rappaport, I heard, he tweeted out that he's been reinstated. Michael Rappaport, who you guys remember, was banned by James Dolan, banned by MSG in the past via the CCTV. For some reason, he was back in the building tonight, man. He wanted to switch up to the Brooklyn Nets. Now he's back in the building tonight and we lose. These front runners. Cardiac says, I'm going to be honest. If it takes the Knicks losing this series to get Tibbs gone, I'm all for it. We would get spanked in the next round anyway. Yeah, man, look, I feel you. Whilst I'm in a different kind of situation, I still want the Knicks to advance because I still think Tibbs, the talk is increasing from the beat writers that, he's far from safe. So I do think the changes will still be made. But look, I can understand, the second round series would be, on this rate, embarrassing right now. But look, you just never know. Injuries can happen to the other team. I still want our guys. I still feel like they deserve a second round. But at the end of the day, have they shown us anything different from the regular season? I mean, our bench is disastrous. Campaign hit a few shots tonight, but if you're Brunson, you're like, get me help, Leon, right? Right. I want to age fine. I don't want to be 35 in a wheelchair right now. The way Jalen Brunson is carrying this team, he'll be in a wheelchair by the time he's 35, man. Best believe that. Right. He can't keep carrying us postseason after postseason. Right. Get this man some help right now in terms of players that can create a shot where the shot clock's going down and dudes ain't standing around, looking around, and dudes looking scared. When the spotlight comes on, look like these guys are shook right now. And I know Brunson dominates the offense most of the season, but what is Tibbs practicing out here? Can we run a play for a shooter? Run a play for a shooter to come off the curl as a decoy or something, man. We ain't seen nothing. Not a single play call out of a timeout. Whenever we get a timeout, it's a turnover or a missed basket and a fast break the other side. There's talk maybe Eric Spoelstra could get fired, man. I know he's been the enemy with the Miami Heat, but I probably think, I'm going to guess that a lot of Knicks fans would welcome Eric Spoelstra with open arms, man. I hate that he's coming from the Heat, but he would definitely be an upgrade in terms of coaching pedigree in this situation, right? To Cardiac's point, man, I want this thing to probably go 7, man. Like, teach these guys a lesson, go down to Detroit. Hopefully they can close it out. I'm still going to root for them to close it out because I'd never root against my team. However, this thing might go 7. This thing might go 7 and they'll have a chance to, bury the demons of last season, losing another game 7, right? And if we were to lose another game 7, that would be see you later, Tom Thibodeau. Pack his bags, man. They want to talk about his legacy as a Knick. Well, his legacy will be losing 2 game 7s at MSG, right? I hope that doesn't happen, right? But, you got a game plan to close these things out. The Knicks weren't good out of timeouts. They weren't good to start the game. They weren't good to start the third quarter. And they'll play catch up, all game, man. It's disgraceful. David M says, I would help Spo move if you want it. Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of Knicks fans would, and, I wouldn't care about the Heat stuff, right? If, Eric Spoelstra's still young. He's young, man. He could coach for another 15, 20 years. And I think he's frustrated over there. And I think there's talk that, he might be out of there, man. If I'm the Denver Nuggets, I'll be looking to get him, man. That'd be the best way to keep the Joker happy. Would be to go there and get Spoelstra. Maybe the Spurs go get him. What's good, bro? Tibbs is horrible for real. Yeah. He made good adjustments in game 2, but once again, we just can't get over the hump. And look, I keep saying, I understand Tibbs has been good for the organization. I'm not saying that. He's got us to where we are, but the road ends here, I feel, Look at this series, guys. Look how difficult it is. This reeks of a situation where we're just at the end of the track. There's no more track for the train to keep going. There's no more road for the car to keep going. We fall off a cliff right now. Obviously, if we beat Detroit and we manage to beat Boston, then Tibbs will have done something different. He'll have changed it up. But right now, I don't see that happening, Is our roster perfect, though? No, it's not. We definitely have to improve on that as well, fam. Now's the time where we do bitch about the referees a bit, because we do have to call a spade a spade. How crazy was that call when OG was tying his shoelace and the dude just tripped over Tim Hardaway, I think, tripped over OG tying his shoelace and he got called a foul on him. Right, talk about makeup game. What about Bridges? He was, got called fouls on him that weren't a foul. Cade carrying the goaltend as well. And then you had Cade stiff arm Hart for the injury as well. Crazy night. I do know that Bridges didn't go up with conviction, but that was a goaltend. No doubt about it, fam. Yeah, I feel like you could have made some adjustments in this one. Cam didn't have it. They were killing us in every single pick and roll. Like, maybe put DeLon Wright out there, just to help you stop a pick and roll. He can switch, he can fight, he can take Cade one-on-one and maybe get a steal or a strip. At the top, the biggest issue the Knicks have had all series is no doubt the pick and roll. They just can't stop Cade. It's one guy on the other team that can beat us, and we're letting him beat us. And that's the indictment on the coach. The Knicks have multiple ways they can beat Detroit. Detroit, to their credit though, some of their role players have done some things, but not enough to really win them a series. It's been Cade, that's it. And Mikal Bridges, defensively, he's just not as advertised. If we can't even switch with him and Anunoby on one single possession to get a stop, then he's not worth re-signing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say. Even we know we're going to take a loss on the 5 first-round picks, right? The price, is not the same as it was yesterday. But you can make a case that Bridges is worth keeping around because he can still, he's still a piece. He's still an asset. But if you're looking at what we have to pay Mikal Bridges and what he's going to command, if we can't even switch him onto Cade Cunningham on a pick and roll, then what's the point? What's the point, man? You may as well sign a vet minimum guy that can, defend better on the pick and roll. Just a crazy situation right now. As the Knicks paid their respects, and we pay our respects to the legend, Dick Barnett, and his family, and Knicks family and teammates, legend of the organization, and legacy living on forever. Number 12. I thought the Knicks would get it done, man. For Doctor Dick Barnett. The guys had the number 12 on their jersey sewn in on this one, man. But just like the Legends night earlier in the season, man, we laid an egg with this situation, which is frustrating. The Knicks had the statement unis and the statement court in this one, as Jalen Brunson received the Clutch Player of the Year award. Brunson was good to close the game out. I thought, the ball stopped a little bit, but I don't like Brunson's starts to the game. But obviously, you got to give him a pass because I feel like he wasn't 100%. He was dealing with that ankle from the last game, and that's another reason why the Knicks just needed to close this one out, man. Like, if we win this series, we're probably going to limp over the line, and Tibbs needs to switch some things up. I would like to see, DeLon Wright. Deuce McBride has been, down all playoffs. Campaign's had one good moment. We were really solid when DeLon Wright was starting for this organization. When Brunson was out, we were an above 500 team. He defended really well. By far the best point of attack defender out of all of the point guards. He hit open threes. He kept the ball moving. And then, when the moment Brunson got healthy, Tibbs already premeditated that, no, DeLon, you're going to go back to situational. And that's tough for a veteran. I understand why a lot of veterans maybe don't want to play for Tibbs. They don't want to come back. They get that opportunity, they put in work, and then they get given a DNP. While the other guys aren't producing. If I'm a coach, man, I give a player 2 or 3 games. If you're not producing, on to the next guy. This is the playoffs. You got to earn your check at the end of the day. Just got to hit on this stat. as well. Brunson is the first player in NBA history to have at least 30 points and 7 assists in each of the first 4 games in a single postseason. How many did Brunson finish with tonight, man? Well, that streak ended with 17 points and Brunson 16 points and 7 assists. So, look, he's been a hero up until now, but obviously he's clearly hobbled, man. We have to rely on some other people, man. The ball doesn't move enough, and other guys are out of rhythm. Another frustrating situation, as I noted earlier, this could be Walt Clyde Frazier's last playoff game on the call, due to the second round covered by the national broadcast, and then next season the NBA has, mandated that the first round series goes to the national networks. Obviously, with the big dollars at stake now, they're freezing out the local networks, which is sad. But Clyde apparently is going to be in attendance in Detroit. They're going to fly him over as a fan, and he's going to be in the building. And Game 7, he will be in the building, obviously, as well, as a fan. But yeah, this could be the final call, man. Not a game that I'm going to want to look back on and watch again. But yeah, let's bury this one now, and let's end the series. Let's close them down. Stefan says Nick's going to limp into limp mode. Play DeLon right. Deuce is out of it. It seems. Yeah, I'm going to feel like something's bothering Deuce because he did miss time with the injury, and all of that. Yeah, haven't seen many offensive sets ran in this one, fam. Look, even Cat had to hunt his threes, and I was kind of a little bit angry with with the deep three, but obviously it went down, and Cat's one of the only guys in the world that can hit that shot, and Damian Lillard, and Steph Curry, but that wasn't really a play, and Cat tried one earlier, and Tibbs was frustrated with him, and I'm like, well, Tibbs set up, run a play, it ain't difficult. Like, I keep going back to the fact that I respect the Detroit Pistons, but how difficult are we making this look? Right. We ain't up against the top 4 seed, and we're struggling to execute. Don't forget, they've got no Isaiah Stewart and no Jaden Ivey. If you're Detroit, you're going to be feeling really good about the future and next season as well. The Knicks need to make serious upgrades if they want to get to the next level right now. Like I said, we'll just be wearing Jalen Brunson down. Like, Jalen Brunson's only 28, but something tells me he's probably got the conditioning in the body of a 31-year-old because of just the mileage. It's a good thing his game ain't reliant on athleticism, AP says NBA is the WWF. For real, I think. Yeah, I've lost a lot of respect for the NBA, and obviously as a kid growing up in Australia, and the NBA was in obviously the peak era in the 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and then things started to change, man. It's obviously become a lot more commercial. These challenge calls, the game being interrupted, the officials changing things up game to game. If you're the players, you've got to be so frustrated. Like, as we spoke about with Coach Nick on the recent show we did with B-Ball Breakdown, I said, why don't we get the same crew, the same officials for each series, just see out the whole series? And then, Coach made a good point. He's like, and then, people might complain about, lopsided bias or, maybe some foul play. But then if you look at it the other way, it's just so inconsistent. Game 4 in Detroit is literally an NFL game, or UFC. Guys were tangling, wrestling up, jiu-jitsu, kung fu fighting, in the words of Clyde, and nothing. And then we get a national inquiry as to Tim Hardaway Jr. Somebody breathed on him, and it was a national inquiry about it, you know? And then we get a game like tonight with Jason Goebel, one of the worst officials in the league, the guy that screwed us last season in Houston for the great Houston robbery. And tonight, you know, if we did a report on missed calls tonight, man, it would be an encyclopedia. So many are coming to my mind. The one where Hart finished in traffic and got elbowed in the head again was hit. Is probably concussed. I won't be surprised if Hart had a concussion, man. It was Jalen Duren's elbow, man, right at the point. Or Tobias, I think, smacked him in the head as he finished a dunk. That's dangerous, man. The NBA has to call those because it's just given a dudes a license to clothesline dudes as they go up for a dunk. And we look at Ja Morant, who's lucky to still be walking. You look at Jalen Wells from Memphis. He's lucky to not be in a wheelchair. And the referees are doing nothing about these closeout fouls when dudes are dunking. And then we want to call a ticky-tack technical on Brunson for complaining about a carry, you know. You're right, man, AP. It literally is the WWE. It's just a soap opera right now. But I told y'all, and a lot of people said, to their credit, this thing is going to go 6 or 7, man. The NBA wants that. The NBA wants those bucks, man. It's like a to be continued series where they just want to make sure it goes 6 or 7, and they can rake in the dollars, man. What kind of game are we going to get in Game 6? I don't know. I won't be surprised if they completely switch it up and blow every call because the series is hanging by a thread right now, you know. When the series ain't about to be over, they let it play, you know, like an NFL game. When the series is about to be over and a team's, life is on the line, they'll start to blow everything, man. It makes no sense. AJ says Schroeder alone been cooking our bench all series. Yeah, it's sad, man. You know, Schroeder can hit a bucket, but yeah, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and the Knicks have just been lucky to get to this situation. Like, think about it. We haven't even had Malik Beasley do anything all series. You know, Tim Hardaway's been inconsistent. Ron Holland's been unplayable. Osar Thompson been basically stealing a check. You know, getting in foul trouble every game. It just makes it more embarrassing. Now tonight, Jalen Duren, I think, probably had his best game. You know, he kind of gave them an Isaiah Stewart type production, protecting the cup. But the Knicks, who else stood up? Like, it's just embarrassing, man. Hart stepped up. Brunson and Cat were a bit clumsy. But yeah, the officiating. I do put a lot of that on the officiating as well. It took those guys out of the rhythm, you know. These are pros with talent, but if they're not in rhythm, it's basically like Superman without their powers, you know. You know, a player needs rhythm, you know. Otherwise, they're going to be inconsistent, you know. Now, if we look at the rebounding tonight, the New York Knicks, did we lose the rebounding again? No. Because of Mitchell Robinson, we won the rebounding by a small margin. But we only had 19 assists for the entire game. Did well on the blocks. You know, shout out OG, had 3 blocks in the first quarter. I was confident we were going to win the game. You know, the way we started with the defense, but the offense was just so ugly, man. And yeah, look, like, you guys are so on fire tonight. You know, we deserve to go 6 or 7, and we deserve to potentially lose the series if this continues, because Detroit shot 27% from downtown. We shot 36% from downtown and still lost. We almost outshot Detroit from 3 by a whole 10% and still managed to lose. And we still managed to shoot 59% from the free throw line. which is disgraceful, man. Uh, I think they're just going to come out with anger, hopefully win it on the road again. But look, the Pistons are a young team, and I think both teams just can't deal with the pressure. I think fortunately for us and the Knicks, I think the Pistons, lack of experience and inability to handle pressure on their home floor is going to hurt them. But I tell you what, if they can catch lightning in a bottle and win game 6, all the pressure goes back on the New York Knicks now. The Pistons never dreamed of being in a game 7 in the first round. They'll be like, hey, we're playing with house money. Who cares? They're going to play loosey-goosey. If the Knicks can't close them out in game 6, that'll be the last chunk of pressure that the Pistons face, because it's literally win or go home. But if they win game 6, the Knicks will have a world of pressure, going into a game 7. In terms of adjustments, I really feel like the Knicks should have played Mitchell Robinson a lot more together with Cat. They tried the hacker Mitch, and then Bickerstaff went away from it because Mitch started to split the free throws. But then Tibbs he brought Cat back in the game. Mitchie needed a rest, but I thought he sat Mitch too long, and he should have really got Mitch in the game because then Cade got going again. And our inability to handle the pick and roll, There's only one guy that can beat us, and Tibbs is letting him do it. Just sickening defense, sickening coverage on that, and he's just chopping us up. Every single pick and roll, man. Stanley says the Pistons are at least hungry. Yeah, the Knicks, I think, were feeling a bit too confident. AP says Schroeder has beat us on 3 different teams this year. Yeah, well, look, they're playing with house money. It's the Knicks are still living in that world where we're the underdog, but really the other team is the underdog. Now we failed to also capitalize on the 2 rest days. Between games 3 and 4, 4 and 5. Now it's back to 1 day rest. When our guys are banged up. But here we are, guys. I think it just speaks to our depth. Do the Pistons have more depth? Everyone said that, if Cade is the best or second best player in the series, the Knicks have the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th best player in the series. And that's true. If you look at OG, Cat, Hart, Mikal, even, Mitch. But once you get past Mitch, then it's all Pistons. That's the concern as well. Then it's Schroeder. Then it's Tobias. Then it's Beasley. Then it's Jalen Duren. Then you could say Paul Reed even. Paul Reed's been more impactful than Deuce. Who else am I missing, man? Or Sarah Thompson as well has probably done more than Campaign or Deuce for the whole series. The Knicks bench just fallen off a cliff. Unfortunately, Landry Shamet dealing with illness. He's probably caught some of that bug that Mitchie had in the last game as well. Maybe there's some of that going around. But that's a concern as well. If the Knicks have the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th best player, the Pistons have the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th best player in the series. And Isaiah Stewart hasn't even been in. Tibbs needs to cut this rotation down even more, or swap Campaign for DeLon Wright. Shrink Deuce's minutes and have DeLon Wright with his experience. The dude's been in the NBA Finals. The dude's been in the league like 13 years. I think he will handle the big spots a bit better. But yeah, I think it'd just be fitting the way this season ends, however way it ends, fam. Whether it ends in this series or it ends in a shutdown in game in round 2. This series has just left a sour taste in in a lot of people's mouth. There's been obviously a lot of highs, but it's more like, okay, we made the big trade on the eve of the season, and obviously earlier in the summer with Bridges as well, and we just haven't recovered from a depth perspective. I never liked what Leon Rose did at the trade deadline. I thought the golden opportunity was there to shake things up a bit more, because that team just needed a little bit of a shake up. But he opted to just stay pat. Traded Sims and got DeLon Wright. That was a good move. That helped us out when JB was down. But ultimately, it was a sideways move. It didn't give us a 6-man to bring off the bench. It didn't give us another jolt. We couldn't get another shooter in the building. The Matt Ryan move was a failure. We had Chuma Okeke on our doorstep, Moses Brown, TJ Warren. We had a few dudes on our doorstep, but we opted not to do anything. We could definitely do with a shooter off the bench, just a guy to come in that they have to respect, a guy that can come in, get hot, hit 10 points, swing a game or two, Last year was our guy Bodega, but Bogey, Bogdanovich, that really helped us in that Philly series, Bogdanovich hit a couple of big threes in the fourth to help us knock off Philly. We're missing that right now, when Cat and Brunson are going a bit cold, we just can't find a guy that can take over offensively. We really miss that kind of guy. And obviously, hate to say it, but Dante, obviously that's a given. We miss Dante. And we have a great opportunity in the summer to address that. We have to get another scorer. But that said, yeah, we have more talent, and we should be winning this series, fam. Like I say, coaching is absolutely at the top. I'm just talking about the front office still had an opportunity at the trade deadline to get a guy in here. But yeah, Tibbs is going to be riding these guys down right now, and you could say this for the whole Tibbs-Leon tenure together. The relationships obviously, helped us get Hart, helped us get JB, Cat in here, all those moves we love. But there's been some bad as well. They haven't been on the same page. Evan Fournier was a bust. Cam Reddish was not a move that Tibbs wanted. PJ Tucker, why did we get him? Really, is if Tibbs ain't going to play him, could we have used that spot for somebody else? Like I said, DeLon Wright was a good move by Leon, but Tibbs ain't utilizing that right here. So these guys better get on the same page in the offseason, or send Tibbs packing. Send him out of here right now. If he ain't going to play the guys you sign, or vice versa, or whatever it is, man, Dolan might just get fed up and step in with these guys right now. Marco says New York has the better players for sure. Detroit has better people by miles. That's the problem. Okay, I don't know really what you mean about that, but the Knicks have more talent. They should be winning a series. Mello says, here's the bottom line. Tibbs played players. No Precious, no Tyler, no Shamet, no Huck, Dardier, or DeLon. Yeah, he's going to bring Brunson to Derrick Rose retirement. At the end of the day, yeah, he needs to be more expansive. I know this is the playoffs, but Deuce ain't producing. You got to look to make an adjustment. Like I said, they've just got a little bit more guys stepping up. Cade's making all the right moves, and they've got a few guys stepping up. Right now, we're just making it difficult. Sarah Thompson is not giving Brunson fits. We've got some Detroit people in the house. I mean, Brunson's been dominating the series. He's been getting Orsar in foul trouble every game. If you want to give Cade credit, I completely understand that. But yeah, I wouldn't be talking about Osar Thompson worrying Brunson. He's literally put himself alongside Michael Jordan, fam, as the only player in NBA history to start a playoff series 30 points and 7 dimes in his first 4 playoff games. The only player in NBA history. No one's ever done it. Right, so I ain't talking about Osar Thompson in this one. Also here, Jalen Brunson's the first player, to start the playoffs with 4 consecutive 30-point games since MJ. The problem with the Knicks is other dudes aren't stepping up. Other dudes aren't stepping up. Brunson's doing all that he can. I keep going back to this graph as we wrap this baby up tonight. Appreciate you all, Knicks family. Looking forward to Game 6, Let's see what this team has. But at the end of the day, you don't deserve to be closing out a series if you're behind on your home floor for most of the game. When I first saw this graphic, I'm like, I thought the Knicks were up top. I thought the Knicks were in the light blue, and I'm like, I had to check it for a second. I'm like, yeah, that's right. We're on the bottom. We're the dark blue, and it just sunk in how much we trailed in this ball game. Basically, Detroit led most of the first quarter. The second quarter was a bit of a split. The third quarter, Detroit were led by most of the quarter, dominated, and the Knicks made their run for a little bit of the start of the fourth. Got slightly ahead. Brunson and co got hurt, and then Detroit took the lead. And so we need more from the other guys. We need more from the coaching right now. But yeah, the officials was poor tonight. But look, credit to Detroit. They staved off elimination. Like I said, they won't win the series because I still believe that winning 3 in a row is just going to prove too much, But whether this is going to go 6 or 7, I think it's been a win for Detroit in their first round series in terms of, they're playing with house money. They weren't expected to go far this season. But however, like I said, going down 3-1 is an enormous hole, and you have to win 3 in a row. And I don't see the New York Knicks with that much talent losing 3 games in a row, right? Heads would have to roll. There would be firings. The players would be feeling too much pressure, I think. But let's see. Game 6 could be really interesting. Once again, it's going to be close. I feel like every single game has been close in this series, and I feel like it's going to be again, maybe it's going to rest in the officials' hands, maybe a final play. Knicks role players have to step up. One thing we do on the road, though, we've been playing a faster speed. And let's see, it does look like the officials have started to tighten this thing up. I don't know if we're going to see this again in Detroit like we saw in Game 4. Obviously, the NBA may have given out that memo, man, to the officials to tighten this thing up, right? I don't know if you guys saw it, but I saw Chuck on TNT. I saw Barkley, mention under his breath that, he heard from somebody within the NBA office that, it was an egregious miss on the Hardaway foul, and that the hammer is going to come down on those officials. So he mentioned suspend, and then he sort of, bit his tongue, and he didn't follow through with saying suspension, but he was about to say suspension. So we don't know, man. Maybe those officials from Game 4 are not going to, see another playoff game, and maybe those other officials, officiating these games are feeling the pressure. I really feel like they're probably feeling the pressure, and they started to blow the whistle tonight. So look, if you hear from your colleague, if you hear from your boss that the colleagues that refed another game are going to get suspended, then that's going to perk up from the rest of the employees. The rest of the employees, that the word is going to get out that, hey, we don't want to be making no mistakes. And so, yeah, I think Game 6 will be a lot more tight. But let's see how it plays out, man. It's hard. It's kind of the best of a bad bunch. Whoever you put in there, whether it's Mark Davis, Jason Goebel, Jay Acosta, the what's his name? The guy Foster, Scott Foster as well. Tony Brothers. It don't matter who, man. These refs are known by their name, and that's not a good thing. You know, we always say in where I'm from, man, if the officials are known by their name, they're not good officials. They're not doing their job. They should be anonymous. We shouldn't be talking about, oh man, it's Scott Foster tonight. Oh man, it's Tony Brothers. These are just officials. We shouldn't be, referring to them by their name, or they shouldn't be notorious, right? And the NBA's got to clean a lot of that up, man. Got to clean a lot of that up. We had that Boston official under investigation, man, and then he suddenly retired before the investigation was concluded as well. That didn't affect the Knicks, but obviously that affected another team, I think from the Boston area, in that series. Yeah, that dude, he had a family photo on his Facebook that was, draped in Celtics gear, and then there was investigating him, and with a betting account or something, and then he retired. You never heard from him again. It was insane. But to bring it all back, I think the Knicks didn't deserve to close the series out. The Pistons deserve to win this one. Bad officiating aside, the Knicks have to do better. Prayers up. Hopefully everybody's healthy to go in a Game 6. Will the Pistons want to lose 3 in a row on their home floor? They absolutely won't. They won't want to. They're fighting for their lives again. It's another elimination game. We're back at it Thursday night. I know heads are probably crashing already as I log off now and look at the reactions. There ain't nothing more to say outside of just correct this, make it right and close the series out in Detroit. Don't dare to bring this back to a Game 7. But we'll see what happens in this one. Mitchell Robinson was great tonight. He stepped up. OG Anunoby was phenomenal defensively, but they continue to find success switching off of OG. Some of it through illegal screens, and some of it they're just fighting to switch Cade on another guy. But that just highlights another weakness in the Knicks roster. We have OG, and we have nobody else who can hold up defensively on the perimeter. OG's been been doing great on Cade, but Bridges has been getting eaten alive on the picks. Hart's been doing okay, but he's usually trying to scramble and get back to position. And then Cat obviously has had to come up and make a decision, and Mitch has obviously been far better for the club when he's been playing. So hopefully they're all ready to go. And let's close this one out early, guys. Signing off. Peace to everyone. Keep your head up. Let's see what this club does on Thursday. Hopefully close them out. I want to do a quick score check actually on the Boston series, and yeah, Celtics have closed out the Magic 120 to 89. Wow, that was a close game early, but the Celtics finish strong and blow the Magic out, winning 4-1 in a gentleman's sweep. So we're already pushing uphill with the Celtics getting their rest from tonight onward, and the New York Knicks bringing it back to Detroit, where hopefully the New York Knicks will close this series out in Detroit. Still a commanding lead, 3-2. So let's go Knicks. But the Celtics are starting to rest, and they await the winner out of this series. Salute to everyone. Peace.